The Phoenix Suns have made their first NBA Finals in 28 years. What makes this run to the NBA Finals even more incredible is just last year, even after going 8-0 in the bubble, the Suns still missed out in the playoffs, extending their playoff drought to 10 years. What they did show in last year's bubble is that they have a very solid core, with a great coach in Monty Williams, a former #1 overall pick, young centre with lots of potential in DeAndre Ayton, and a superstar level talent in Devin Booker, who showed he's a 3-level scorer, more than capable of hitting the three, lethal from the mid-range, and can get to the rim. And a lot of people thought that the 2019 to 2020 Suns were only a couple of pieces away from being a playoff team. Now, not a championship team, but a playoff team. They just needed a little bit more depth and experience, and someone who could share the load, at least the scoring load, with Devin Booker. The Suns filled those problems in during the 2020 offseason, bringing in Chris Paul from the OKC, also signing experienced 3-and-D wing in Jay Crowder, who had just come off, a shock finals run with the Miami Heat in the bubble. So adding Chris Paul and Jay Crowder with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and some good role players like Cameron Payne and Cameron Johnson, a lot of people thought that this Suns team could push for a top 4 seed in the West at best. But, they over-exceeded expectations, and I don't think anyone predicted the Suns to get out of the West this year. It was Lakers, Clippers, then Nuggets, then then maybe the Suns. But top 4 seed was the best people thought the Suns could do, and they exceeded expectations. So let's have a look back at the 2020-21 season for the Suns. The Suns, as I said, exceeded expectations, finishing second in the Western Conference, with Chris Paul and Devin Booker becoming All-Stars, and Monty Williams being a top 2 Coach of the Year contender. And getting into the 2021 playoffs, not everyone had fully respected them yet, Laker fans, including myself, were pretty happy to see the Suns in the first round. We thought we could definitely, get over the line and beat them. But to be fair, to Laker fans like myself, who thought we could beat the Suns pretty handily, most Laker fans thought we could beat the Suns in 5. We were 2-1 up against the Suns, and we were about to go 3-1. We were leading by 10 points in Game 4 at Staples Center before AD went down. And then, once AD had that groin injury, it was wraps for the Lakers. The Suns ended up beating the Lakers in 6, but taking it away from the Suns, they are incredibly impressive in that series. In Game 1, they were unbelievable. The Phoenix crowd are a very intimidating crowd. Maybe it's just because they hate the Lakers or something, I don't know. But great home crowd. And even in Game 6 on the road at Staples, Devin Booker just lit the Lakers up, hitting 47 points in a series clinching game. So you got to give the Suns their props. In that Lakers series. Yes, AD went down injured, but they were playing very well, and Chris Paul was injured as well for most of that series. So after beating the Lakers, the defending champions Lakers, in the first round, the Suns will go on to play Denver Nuggets in the second. And I thought this would be a pretty even series, even though Jamal Murray was out for the Denver Nuggets. But the Suns ended up sweeping the Nuggets, with Chris Paul lighting Denver up from the mid-range, and rolled back the years in the series clinching Game 4. This meant CP3 will go up against his former team, the Clippers, in the Western Conference Finals. So he couldn't have wrote it any better. And now, yes, if you're a Suns hater, you could say, well, there's AD injured and Jamal Murray injured in both rounds. But you got to beat what's in front of you. Injuries are part of the playoffs. So the Suns have made the Western Conference Finals, where they play the Clippers. The Phoenix Suns were favoured versus the Clippers in the Western Finals, with Kawhi Leonard out, but CP3 did have to miss the first 2 games of the series after he got COVID, even though I think he already got vaccinated, so I don't know how that works. But he missed the first 2 games, and the Suns barely won both games, with DeAndre Ayton catching a game-winning lob to get them over the line in Game 2. CP3 came back for Game 3, which they lost, but they responded in Game 4, winning that on the road, which meant they would go back to Phoenix for Game 5, and the Suns fans expect them to win that game on their home floor, but surprisingly, they didn't, which meant they had to go back to LA, back to Staples Center for Game 6, and in Game 6, Chris Paul, he balled out his mind. He scored 41 points with 8 assists and 0 turnovers, which got the Suns to their first NBA Finals appearance since 1993. So an incredible run for the Suns. Yes, they've had a bit of luck along the way, but every champion needs a bit of luck along the way. So what does this playoff run do for Chris Paul's legacy? Well, these past 2 years have done a lot. In OKC and Phoenix have done a lot for his legacy. After what he's done for these past 2 franchises, he's been the main reason behind their massive successes, really. Before this year, Chris Paul had a reputation of not being able to get it done in the playoffs, or even choking in the playoffs. He's had a long career and he's had a lot of playoff disappointment until this year. So in the playoffs, in 2015 he did kind of choke a 3-1 lead with the Clippers. They went 3-1 up against the Rockets and they blew that in the second round. But every other year, you can't really blame Chris Paul. In 2016, both he and Blake Griffin got injured in the first round, which meant the Clippers got eliminated. In 2017, Blake got injured, so Chris Paul had to go solo, which meant the Clippers once again got eliminated early in the playoffs. Then he got traded to Houston, where in 2018 he was one win away from making the NBA Finals, almost beating the Golden State Warriors, one of the greatest teams of all time. He got injured near the very end of Game 5, which meant he had to miss the rest of the series, and the rest of the Rockets, including James Harden, couldn't really get it done, so they lost to the Warriors in the Game 7. And even in this year's playoffs, in round 1 versus the Lakers, Chris Paul would suffer a shoulder injury, which would force him to miss games, and when he did play, he looked like a shell of his former self, really. And then round 2, he got back to his best against the Denver Nuggets, but then missing the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals, getting COVID. So he's had some injury scares, demons coming back from the past, but he got over the line. He's in his first NBA Finals ever in his 16-year career, and it's great to see him there. And he's had a great playoffs this year, averaging 18.1 points per game, 8.7 assists per game, 1.4 steals a game, 4 rebounds, on 47% shooting from the field, and 40.5% shooting from 3. Including beating his old team, the LA Clippers, in the conference finals, on the Clippers' home floor, with the fans who used to love him, and then the Clippers trade him to Houston. So it must have been pretty good for Chris Paul. Pretty ironic for Clippers fans, seeing their point guard today were happy enough to move on. They thought he'd probably past his best, come back at 36 years old, and beaten and get to his first NBA Finals. So this year's playoff run, I think, has done a lot for Chris Paul's legacy. He's no longer a choke artist in the playoffs. Now he's into an NBA Finals, and I think if he can get it done and win his first NBA championship, I think Chris Paul is recognised as a top 5 point guard of all time anyway. But I think this would move him up past people like Steve Nash, in my opinion anyway, winning that championship. This would be incredible, and even get the Suns a championship. It's not like he got bought out by OKC in 2019 and joined the Lakers on a veteran minimum. Him and Devin Booker are the main reason, and DeAndre Ayton, why the Suns are here. And this winning a championship to cap it all off, he'd do a lot for his legacy. But I think most of it's written for him anyway. This playoff run, he's done a lot for his legacy, and definitely top 5 point guard of all time for sure. Maybe he might move up if he wins a championship. But CP3 isn't the only reason why the Suns are in the NBA Finals. Devin Booker has done a lot of the heavy lifting, averaging 27 points per game, 4.8 assists per game, shooting 44% from the field and 34.5% from 3 on 6 threes a game. Booker led the team in scoring, and he was exceptional in that Lakers series, having a 47-point Game 6 against the Lakers. He was unbelievable. As a Laker fan, I couldn't believe it watching Game 6, and Devin Booker just kept hitting threes. He was unguardable. So D-Book, he's done his fair share of heavy lifting for the Suns team, and he's shown that he's a true star in this league, and he's able to do it in the playoffs. You got a lot of regular season players, who just do great in regular season, don't quite live up to it in the playoffs, but I think he's done very well in the playoffs. And even that Clipper series, got the nose injury, but I think he's getting back to his best now. And I said before the playoffs, if the Suns are going to be successful and make a deep run, they need DeAndre Ayton to be that third star, and he's been that. He's averaged 16.2 points per game, 11.8 boards, 1 block, and 70% shooting from the field. And he, once again, another player who's unbelievable in that Lakers series. I was watching that series more closely than probably the Nuggets one at least. As a Lakers fan, DeAndre Ayton was unbelievable. He slowed down AD in games 1 and 2. Well, not really 2, but game 1 anyway, he slowed him down. And then, of course, AD got injured. But DeAndre Ayton, throughout the whole series, did incredible for the Suns, catching rebounds, grabbing rebounds, catching lobs, and getting his fair share of scoring as well. And I think he's in line for a max contract extension this offseason. Chris Paul said he wants to get this guy paid, and I think he will. A great young centre, as I said earlier on, a former number 1 overall pick. I think he's shown that he's improving, and even though his pick and rolls with Chris Paul, he's pretty deadly. And CP3 has definitely got the best out of DeAndre Ayton, but fair play to DeAndre Ayton, he's done unbelievable. Happy for the guy, I like him, and I fully expect him to get a max extension with the Suns this off-season, especially to win the whole thing. And also Jay Crowder, who they brought in this off-season, he's brought much needed defense and 3-point shooting, averaging 10.4 points per game on 37% shooting from 3 on 6.4 threes a game. He's experienced, You know what you're going to get with Jay Crowder, you know, high intensity, great perimeter defense, and some 3-point shooting, some floor spacing, you know. And Cameron Payne, he's another player who's had a great playoffs, especially in that Clippers series when CP3 was injured for game 1 and 2. He had a 25 plus point game in game 2 to get the Suns over the line, and in this playoffs he's averaged 10 points per game on 36.5% shooting from 3. And yeah, he's been a very, very good role player for the Suns in this playoff run, and I'm happy for him, you know. He's a great player, you know. As a Laker fan, I'd love to see him as a Laker. Never going to happen, so Suns fans enjoy him. So overall, this has been an incredible season for the Suns, obviously enough, making their first NBA Finals in 28 years. People could say, haters you could call them, will say that the only reason the Suns are here is because of other teams' best players being injured. And you know, you gotta look at both sides. The first round, Lakers, AD was injured, LeBron wasn't fully healthy, and as a Lakers fan, I know KCP and Caruso weren't there for the whole series. But after watching all those 6 games, the Suns were very good, you know, home and away, not just relying on the home crowd. They're very good at Staples as well, so you know, fair play to them. Then round 2 against Denver, I think they could have won that series anyway, but not having Jamal Murray, Denver's second best player, doesn't help. But you know, injuries are part of the game, as we all know. And then in the Western Finals, with Kawhi Leonard missing the whole series, which obviously doesn't help the Clippers, you know, he's their main man. But no, injuries are part of the game. Just ask Chris Paul, you know, over his 16-year career, he's had enough bad luck during his career, especially in the playoffs. At 36 years old, he's only making his first NBA Finals appearance, which, you know, is a long time coming, but at least he's made it to the Finals at least. Hopefully, you know, he's not liked by everyone. He does do a bit of flopping, he does talk a lot in the court, but he can back it up. And I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Paul win his first ever NBA championship. I'd even be pretty happy for him, you know. But wait and see if they can get it done. But I do think the Phoenix Suns need to take full advantage of the situation that they are in. CP3 doesn't have too many years left at the top, you know, maybe 2-3 years max left at this level. So, you know, they got to take full advantage of this situation. They've had breaks go their way with injuries as of right now. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, everyone's pretty healthy, and then other teams haven't been. So they've had breaks with injuries, so they got to go and take full advantage. And I think they got to go and win this championship, you know. Obviously, it won't be easy. It's never easy winning a championship though, so I think they need to go all out and just win it this year. I think this is their best opportunity. As I say, Chris Paul's not going to get any younger. Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz are not going away anywhere. Then on the East, you got Brooklyn, you got Milwaukee, you got Philly, Atlanta are going to get better. So I think now is the time for the Suns to capitalise in this situation and win the championship. And as we all know, it's never easy. It's never easy to win a championship, but they've got this far now. I think they should, you know, they won't be getting it done anyway. But I don't think they will, if it's, you know, but I would not put it past them on this playoff run. They surprised me all the way up, you know, especially that Lakers series, they surprised me. So I wouldn't put it past this Phoenix Suns team winning an NBA championship this year, and you know, I wouldn't mind if they did. But anyway guys, that's the video. Suns fans, tell me how you're feeling going to NBA Finals. Are you confident? Are you just happy to be there? Tell me how you're feeling. But anyway guys, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications so you know if I have an upload. And yeah, with all that said, I'm out of here.